Good afternoon, nerds and chat shows. This is the Nerd Chat Show. Like the new roller coaster at the Royal Myle, the world is being turned upside down in 1982 because a lady called Mary Whitehouse has gotten her knickaroos in a twist. Something's offensive, apparently. Just a good job she doesn't have a way to tell the whole world about it, because then everybody would be doing it. I mean, it's the Pearl Jubilee. She's going to need them on the necklace that she's clutching, right? Welcome to 1982, you guys. Yes, this is the one you've been waiting for, and this is also the one that starts all of the others that you're also waiting for. Yeah, we're finally getting the coasters that are possibly still around in 2023, and we're going to start with a loopy little number from, well, whether it's Arrow or Vekoma is just an argument for another video. But wait, where is it? Oh man, this is going to hurt. Oh, sorry, Bob. It just wasn't meant to be, mate. Times move on. And I mean, it's just another brutal decision I've got to make in the park's history. And there are so many more coming in the future. I just don't want to go on. But by now, Bob would have been pretty unstable. Yeah, me too, Bob. Me too. But they weren't actually known for their structural integrity. By now, it would have been in operation for 30 years. It's falling apart at the seams. I did have other locations I could have chosen, but this was the prime location for me. So this is where it's going to sit. I've kept the original station in so you can see like where it's sitting on the sight line. Let me real quickly move it out of the way. There you go. And it is a classic Arrow Vekoma layout. It's only a one looper though, rather than a two looper. I think Shaman at Guardland's two loops, but it's pretty much that layout. So you come from the station down into a short dip that gives the speed to the train, and then into the lift hill. Nothing particularly special about this. It's like 25 degrees, if that, set to about 5 or 6 mile an hour. And it comes into the first drop, into the first loop, into the overbanked turn this way. There you go. And it comes around here, into the corkscrews. I learned a really, really cool trick doing this, by the way. If you can get your first shaping of your corkscrew right, so you can get to this point here where it's upside down, you can then actually use the in-game one to finish it off. Because there's a midsection, and I'm like, yes, that makes it so much easier. But you do have to fight with getting the dimensions right. But it's fine. Like, just use the in-game one. And then it comes round into the final break one. I decided not to do the final helix because I need the space here, right? Because this is where the queue and stuff is going to go. I have got absolutely no idea how I'm going to deal with the path in this area. I have made it tall enough so that you can walk underneath it. And of course, as you can probably tell, I'm going to be custom supporting this. I've already taken the supports out, which is a first for me. It's because I've already been working on them secretly. This coaster's not brand new to this park. This has been worked on for quite some time. This is the worst kept secret. I've been working on this since 1930. So, yeah, this is how it's sitting. I don't quite know how I'm going to be dealing with the pathway. What I have noticed is all of the others have got this area pretty much cornered off. You do have some pathing that goes underneath it, but you don't actually have them directly underneath the corkscrew. So let me see what I can do. See you in a minute. Hiya guys, it's another week and it's another custom support hostage situation, but my god, it was worth doing. These were really, really difficult to do, but it's turned out so nicely. Like, it's sitting amazingly on the sightline. Do you know what? It's been 3 weeks since I started this because of life stuff and whatever. I've got to try and remember back 3 weeks ago to what I was doing to talk you through this middle part of the episode. But hey, it's already looking quite complete, right? I'm already quite happy with this. And yes, it's an absolute downgrade from the Woody that was here before, but that's the whole purpose. This is supposed to be quite grotesque. It's Arrow stroke Vekoma, and do you know what? Purists amongst you are going to fight over whether it's Arrow and Vekoma. You guys make my life an absolute living hell. I'm done with it. I'm done fighting with you. Just fight amongst yourselves. But this is the whole purpose of these coasters. They're just here, and they're modern. Remembering that this is modern for the time scale that we're dealing with, so this is cutting edge technology, even though in 2023 we look back and think is absolute trash. And yes, I absolutely snookered myself with design here. I wanted this station to not be so tall. It's actually a lot taller than I thought it was going to be, but it is what it is. I'm making no excuses about the fact that I am stealing designs from the early days of these coasters. Corkscrew at Cedar Point being one of them. And actually, this whole structure that we've got here is quite respectful of the fact that we're using this design elsewhere in the park. You know, like the where are they? Over here somewhere. These here. So it's actually quite respectful to the fact that we've got this in the park already. I kind of wanted to bring that through because it needs that kind of consistency, right? But this is ultimately the station. Because it is quite high up, you do need a little bit of fencing, like almost decorative don't die fencing. I have got no idea what I'm going to do with the stairwells yet. That's tomorrow me's problem. But for now, the station is looking like this. And inside here, they are actually quite simple stations. They don't really need to have much more than this going on in them. You've got all the push points. Of course, it's going to get touched up and it's gonna get kitted out and whatever. But I just started to put all of the baggage bins in. I started to put the push points and whatever, just so I know what this is like. But inside here, probably wouldn't be much more than this. And I'm actually all right with that. And then over this way, I have put what I was going to do, a maintenance area. But when I looked into the history of these coasters, these wouldn't have been maintenance areas. Maintenance is done in the station. So this is literally just somewhere to store the extra train if you don't want to use the extra train. This is not a maintenance area. So that's why there's not really that much effort put into this. You've got a transfer track, and of course it would move the track over to bring the train off, and then you just store the train in here. But you don't do maintenance in this area, so therefore you don't need vehicular access. You don't need any kind of access. In fact, you wouldn't even walk on here. It is just for you to store a train. So I'm all right with that. I might put some escape stairs and stuff if I can be bothered, but it doesn't need them. And in fact, it doesn't even need this. If you look at the early ones, I think it's Wild Thing is the one I'm looking at the moment. It doesn't even have a transfer track, so it's fine, whatever. So let's talk about these supports then, shall we? Because, this was just hideous. I saw something similar on the workshop, so I thought, actually, I'm going to take my cues from there because it's a really good idea, right? So what I did was the in-game gridded supports, whatever they're called, for this one, and then the poles, you know, the traffic poles, just put in here as the cross bracing, and it works out quite nicely. I had originally thought about using hydro beams to do it, but it was just a little bit too overkill, so I actually ended up... And I wanted them to be round, by the way. I didn't want them to be square. I did the square ones on the Arrow suspended coaster over in Wilderview Mews. They look all right, but they're square, and fundamentally, these supports are not square. They are, in fact, round. So yeah, this is what I did. I just put them into a cross bracing, and then just copied and pasted it up, and it looks all right. Like, it does what it needs to do. And then the other custom supports I put in here, these are actually pulled through from Grosvenor Gardens when I did the looping coaster, the looping corkscrew coaster over there. So I was able to actually repurpose those quite nicely. I do need to do a bit of touching up around this area, like I need to do the concrete footers and whatever that stick out of the water. I haven't put those in yet, but yeah, what I have done is this concrete footer. This felt like I needed to do that for this update, so you could see how this was all going. Queue line wise, I really struggled with design on this queue line because we're quite limited to space, and making it an interesting queue line for the 80s It's hard, right? It's hard. So I ended up just doing a cattle pen. So because of course, when in doubt, just cattle pen it. So I put in this cattle pen, and then I've just wrapped it around itself. And then I realised that this area here wouldn't have been long enough of a queue. So I actually ended up bringing it all the way out here, cattle penning it again, and bringing it back. I didn't have intentions of doing this. I wanted this to be like ride area and stuff, but actually this works just as well, and it sits quite nicely on the old sight line next to the path anyway. So it's fine. The one thing that I did notice, by the way, and that it's really hard to do it in Planet Coaster unless you're going to do a proper full-on custom corkscrew, is that this second corkscrew, in theory, should be lower than the first one because of the speed kill, and you want consistency across the inversions and stuff. Right now, that's not always the case. You can look at them, some of them, and they are at the same level. Like, it's not always the way, but typically they are lower. But I didn't want it to be lower because then this would just cause problems here, right, with this pathway. And I wanted there to be pathway interaction here, and I absolutely wanted there to be pathway interaction here. I wanted this to be a plaza, a little bit like Gardaland's is, where it swoops around this way, comes down to the pathway, and you can just see it going into the corkscrews there, right? So that's what I've got. I have put, of course, the in-game paths in, which look quite messy. But when we put the path covers in, this is gonna make it all make sense. And then just on the outside, I started to put in some of the don't die fencing and whatever, just to get a feel for how I want this area to be maintained and how I want it to be secure. And then the back end here, I'm going to need to finish off the railway stuff, and then bring in the fencing along this way, and then of course it needs all of its foliage and whatever. So it's a relatively simple build. It's just time consuming to do because there's lots of detail that's needed. So I reckon I'm just going to crack on and get it done. See you in a minute. Oh, you guys, I think I probably vastly overestimated the amount of work I had left to do at the last update, because that's probably a bit of a short time lapse. But hey, we're done, and it's done for now, Stamp, because this area is getting a bit of a retheme in the next sort of 10, 15 years or so, and it's going to probably take on a little bit of a different life form, so I didn't want to put too much effort into doing something that actually I'm just going to tear out. You know, that's the principle of the series. It's good enough to last in the 80s, but it's not going to stay for very long. So, but I love how this is sitting on the sightline. It just sits so perfectly there. Given that the original location was actually going to be here, and I was going to strip all of this out and finish off the lagoon bit and all of that, I'm actually kind of happy with it sitting here in the sightline. So this is what we have got. This is the plaza area that I wanted. And no, there wouldn't be any netting. It's 1982. Things haven't started falling off trains yet. Like, people aren't complaining about stuff on Twitter yet, but hey, it's 1982. Merry Whitehouse is around, so be careful. But hey, this is what I wanted this to be. This is everything I wanted it to be. it's just the perfect plaza pleaser. It's taken so many takes to say, like I've ruined so many takes. But yeah, this is it. I went for this whole purple, orange and white colour scheme because that felt like that was the thing of the 80s. We're just on the cusp of when like the whole neon bold colour things are about to happen. That happens in the mid 80s. So that's kind of like, we're leading up to that, but we're not quite there. That's going to be more influence when we do the area retheme. But yeah, the actual custom supports and stuff, they sit so well now that all the foliage and stuff is in. It just feels like it's absolutely right. At the back here, then, I tidied up the railway line, and I've put in the rest of the fencing and the stuff. The fencing here would only need to come around here because, well, this is well above peep level, so you're never actually going to have any kind of collision risk. So it's all good. Then I've done the fencing down the exit stairs here, and do I love it? Actually, I do. Now I look at it. I didn't at the time. I was like, this is a bit rubbish. I'm not feeling it. But yeah, actually, I do like it now. It's finished. And then inside the station here, just like minor touches and things that I've done, and like, these stations are so simple and so effective. The one thing I didn't point out, by the way, in the last update is this deliberate choice of different colours. I didn't want these beams to be all the same colour. I wanted them to have some kind of variation to it. So that's why I've chosen the pink and the purple here. It kind of works, actually. Like, again, it's the 80s, so we're about to do some really bold colour clash combinations and whatever. So we're just, as I said, we are leading into this idea of this bold geometric stuff. It's infused, it's not actually there. And then we've got all the lights and things. So this is all the fluorescent gubbings that you'll find. Like, fluorescent lighting is just the thing of the 80s here in the UK. It's just disgusting. No building was complete without some kind of horrible fluorescent lighting. And then the station itself, really simple. All of our fast food units back in the 80s, so places like Pizza Hut and McDonald's and whatever, they all had this style of roof. This is consistent with how the 80s were in the UK. And I've actually decided to keep this bit open. I thought, that would be like modern 80s, or modern for the 80s, modern architecture. And the fact that it's wide open, it's all this big space. So yeah, I've kept it like that. That's kind of like a deliberate choice. Now, you're probably thinking, hey Chacho, why has the Royal Mile spent so much money on themed areas here and this themed area over here, and then so much money on the Pirate Dark ride, to then just throw this generic, jank, horrible thing in? Well, good question, sirs and madams, and anybody in between. There is no real choice. There is no real answer other than the fact that these things were expensive. So, because they're such modern technology, you wouldn't have necessarily themed it as such. Or at least you wouldn't have taken the opportunity to, because the money would have been spent on the ride. And that's why. Whereas before, you were able to put it together fairly cheaply. So that's the reason why. In case you're wondering, why it's all generic and jank and stuff. It's not laziness as such. it's because of the sheer cost. And have a look at the Alton Towers corkscrew, right? That station was just literally a tent, and that was it. So I've put some flowers and stuff in here. I wanted to continue the idea of the waterfall flower beds and pay homage to the fact that there was like originally flowers and stuff here. So this is all a little bit of colour that's brought into the area, and then this plaza area is just, I love it. It just splits off, and you've got the queue line here, and you can just walk down this way. I've created a complete bottleneck here. I think I might need to come back and put a path down here so that you can at least bypass the area a little bit and call it done. So the queue line then, I've just put path covers and tidied it all up in this area. This doesn't need to be any more than this. This is perfect for this ride. And actually now all of the concrete bases and whatever are actually fit in quite nicely. And I have also finished off the concrete bases and stuff in the water as well. So now this is all sitting correctly. The maintenance area has had absolutely nothing done to it. I didn't want to do any more to it. Like I say, it's just a storage for the extra train that lives on the track. However, what I have done, is over here, is I have actually put in a doorway for some kind of maintenance area that would be under the station. Now, I haven't kitted it out for the same reason that I haven't kitted out any of the other ones where they've lived under the station. It's just because the supports and stuff make it quite difficult to do. And having a look at the Cedar Point corkscrew, there's actually some kind of an access point from the station platform. We can't do that in game. We just have no way of making it look like it's supposed to be there. I did try and put stairs in, and I used the black art shapes to make a hole, and it just looked really cartoony and horrible. It didn't look realistic at all, so actually I've just decided just to leave it like that and call it done. And I didn't talk about this in the first instance, but the catwalk I've also continued around this way. This would be the evacuation point, but actually on the lower down versions of this ride, the stairs actually just go into the ground, and you just exit on at ground level and call it done, right? So that's what I've done here, is I've just pulled the catwalk around this way, and then just tidying up this area, really. I did think I was going to close off the carousel and like completely get rid of it and just open up this plaza area, but actually it sits all right there for now. So although its days are numbered, it's safe for now. And then when we just look at it from the lake, it just looks, yeah, like I say, it's a complete downgrade from the Woody that we had, but I'm all right with it, you know, like, especially as we still got the homage to the original Woody still sitting here. I could have taken the opportunity to update all of the fencing and stuff, but I thought, no, it needs to be there. It's just there. And there you go. It's a loopy coaster. So guys, thank you so much for getting to the end of the video. As always, I really do appreciate it. You know what to do. Leave a like and a comment. I think the series is going to start speeding up from here. This is the point in time where we're going to start like really getting some of the decent coasters in, and yeah, this is it's going to rapidly take off. I promise that now. Right, I think we need to go for a ride. Until we speak again, please look after yourselves. I'll see you next week. Take care. Bye.